everyone. This is Pacific Institute Book Talk with Steve Slocum. Steve is an award-winning author and the founder of nonprofit SalamUSA.org. Salam's book, Why Do They Hate Us? Making Peace with the Muslim World, which we are going to discuss today, is a 2020 silver medalist in the prestigious Benjamin Franklin Book Awards and was named a top book of 2019 by both Booklist and Kirkus. Slocum is passionate about breaking down barriers and bringing unlikely groups of people together. He's appeared on KTLA and CBS 8 morning news programs and been invited to speak at international conferences in Qatar, the UN headquarters in Geneva, and the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto last year. Glad to have you with us, Steve.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Today, Steve will be talking about observations and lessons learned from roughly 2 years, February 2018 and February 2020, of fieldwork developing and executing a process to counter anti-Muslim sentiment in the United States by bringing grassroots of Muslim and non-Muslim Americans together in friendship. And this is like outside of the classical interfaith network thing, I suppose, Steve, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yes, now the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. So just a little bit about me, a little about my background before I begin. I had a very profound conversion experience to Christianity when I was about 17 years old, just beginning my studies as an engineer. And it definitely affected my life. I left engineering school, I went to Bible school, and was very committed to my newfound faith. And I ended up finally in the 90s, between 1992 and 1997, in the Turkic world as a missionary, a Christian missionary in Kazakhstan. And so that was sort of the beginning of my journey in, I was immersed in a wonderful Turkic Muslim culture and was treated with, even though I was a missionary with an intent of, converting people to my faith, the people treated me with hospitality and kindness, friendliness in every way to my whole family, my children. We were invited to birthday parties, weddings, everything. It was just a wonderful experience for us, and it planted the seeds in me for change, to begin to unwind my strongly held Christian beliefs and make space that maybe these people who I came to bring this my own beliefs to, maybe they're okay, maybe their beliefs were good, maybe they didn't need my beliefs. I planted those seeds. It took a long time after returning back to the States in 1997, 2001. 9/11 happened, which was also, of course, a huge event for all of us that live in the States, traumatizing. I had many of the same questions that many of us had. Why did these Muslim guys do this? What was it about? Because it sure didn't add up to my experience with the Muslim peoples in Kazakhstan. So that was the beginning. And as time went on, we've all seen that, even though it's 20 years almost since 9/11, that Islamophobia is worse than it ever was. And that's because it's been taken advantage of politically to stir people up and get them to vote in certain ways. And so it's for political motivation, misinformation is used to stir up this negative ideas about Muslims and about Islam. So finally I said, okay, that's enough. I can't take this anymore. I need to speak up. I need to speak up about my own experiences and tell people what my experience is about with the Muslim people. And I started by writing my book. My book is called Why Do They Hate Us? Making Peace with the Muslim World. Now, Why Do They Hate Us is an interesting title in the sense that it's all based on pronouns. Why do they hate us? Now, when I speak to Muslims, they usually think I mean, why do non-Muslims hate Muslims? And when I speak to non-Muslims, they usually think, why do Muslims hate non-Muslims? So it kind of draws attention to both sides in that way, but it's actually a direct quotation from George W. Bush's speech right after 9/11. And he directly asked that question and said, why do they hate us? And then he said his answer, I don't know if you remember the answer, they hate our freedoms, blah, blah, blah. None of it was true, but it was used as the motivation behind invading both Afghanistan and then Iraq and creating incredible chaos in the region. So I wrote my book to kind of debunk everything that George Bush said and the political activities, which are the real motivation behind what's called Islamic terrorism. It has nothing to do with Islam and everything to do with political and military activities that were carried out in the region. So that's what my book is about. I start with the story of the beginnings of Islam. It's my own journey because I didn't know any of this myself. I just began reading and studying, and so I write about my journey of understanding the beginnings of Islam from the times of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to through the empire, through the colonial era, and through the political injustices that incurred, to mainly connect the dots for non-Muslim Americans like myself, where we didn't know why this happened. I had enough of a background, but most people don't have that background, so they were confused. And so I write my book to answer those questions. And in addition to my book, I founded my nonprofit, which is called Salam, Peace, Pacifica, same word, of course. And we focus on peace. So the talk I'm going to give was originally intended to be a paper that was going to be given in an international interfaith event in Qatar. And the theme of the topic that I was going to address was desired actions for combating hate speech, create a culture of peace, coexistence, and respect for cultural and religious diversity. So it, as you said, it presents observations and lessons over the last couple of years in working with Muslims and non-Muslims, trying to bring them together. And it is unique in the sense that we've worked primarily outside of existing interfaith networks and focused primarily on grassroots Muslims and non-Muslims. So we at Salam have developed an easily deployable and scalable, simple process to help non-Muslim community groups and organizations overcome fear and misinformation and develop friendship with Muslims. And at this point, I'm going to quickly share my screen. Please bear with me if we have any technical difficulties. 1 second. So this is just our slide. Let me just go to the next one real quick. Somehow the advanced keys aren't working. All right, I'm going to keep talking. So before we begin our process, we designed it around deploying it in communities that don't already have a robust interfaith group involving Muslims. And it assumes that a significant percentage of that community is steeped in anti-Muslim misinformation. So that's our starting point. We do some preparatory work, and basically that amounts to going into a community and finding the local mosque, or there's sometimes there's more than one, but we go visit the mosque and share our thoughts with the board of directors and forge a partnership with them, requesting that they provide a few speakers for our events, and work with us. In these initial interactions, we emphasize two things. First, the importance of trust. As a former missionary, I want to make it really clear that this has to do with this history of Christian evangelical churches reaching out in friendship, but actually having an unexpressed agenda of converting Muslims to Christianity. So I find that for those that don't know us yet, that it's very important to make that really clear, that that's not what we're about. We have no hidden agendas. Our only mission is friendship and mutual understanding. And so we start there and form a bond of trust with the Muslims of the communities. Secondly, then we emphasize that Salam exists only to serve the Muslim community. We find it's important to emphasize and adopt this posture of humble service, and that it's a key element in forging a solid partnership, given the things that we know about colonial history, whatever. We're learning to play that role of serving, just humility. It's important. So we say clearly that we don't speak for Muslims, and we make it clear that our only goal is to clear the fog of misinformation so Muslims can ably speak for themselves. And just before going on, I want to emphasize that I'm not a Muslim. I wouldn't say that I'm a Christian. Where I am is that I encourage all those from all faiths to pursue their own concept and awareness of the divine and be true to it. So that's where I find myself. And everyone always asks me if I'm a Muslim, and so I just need to make it clear for my own authenticity in this work that no, I'm not. As I've had people ask me this, I'm some sort of secret, PR representative undercover working for Muslims. No, that's not what I'm about. We're just here to bring people together, and my role is to clear the fog of misinformation, and that's all. And then I let my Muslim friends and brothers and sisters speak for themselves. So after we solidify this partnership with the community mosque, we begin reaching out to churches or other community groups in the immediate vicinity there. And we are usually looking for someone that we can partner with who wants to take ownership, who recognizes the fracture and inflammation in relationship between Muslims and non-Muslims. And they're a community leader who wants to take ownership around that and get involved. So once we find that person and they agree to taking some ownership and acting some events, then we have everything in place to begin our event series. Now, I might have to take a second here to try to see how I can get the slide to advance, because I want to advance. So hold on one second here. Okay. Sorry about this, technical difficulties. So somehow when I'm in the slide mode, it doesn't want to advance. So I'll just leave it in this mode. Hope everyone can see that okay. Here's our three-step process. So we start out with awareness events, and these take place in two phases. Phase one is designed assuming an audience of fearful and misinformed people. The event is a comfortable community gathering place familiar to the audience, usually at the facility of the partnering non-Muslim community leader. So we encourage promotion of the event to the community at large and also to other groups within the community, such as churches, synagogues, other community groups. And we also reach out to the local media. The event itself is a series of talks given by Muslim speakers. Our typical talks include Islam 101, Sharia, what is it, what it isn't, jihad, misconceptions about Muslims in war, and the role of women in Islam. And then of course, plenty of time for Q&A. For most of the audience, this is their first time hearing anything about Islam that didn't come from some over-dramatized terrorist movie, misinformed news story about a terrorist incident, or a completely false, social media graphic or something. So for this reason, this simple event held in the safety and comfort of the audience's environment can be very powerful and mind expanding. They hear things that they've never heard about their Muslim neighbors, and this is the beginning of a course change for many of them. One of my favorite things about these meetings is that oftentimes it occurs, Maghrib takes place right in but it breaks up the evening, sunset. And so one of the things that we do is we accommodate that for our Muslims, and we bring in up a space for them to go ahead and say their prayers and do the call to prayer. And we even invite the audience to take part in the prayers. And that it's usually quite a highlight. Many people do take part. Again, not because they want to become Muslims, but because they want to make a statement of brotherhood and sisterhood and pray together. And I really honestly find this to be quite powerful. I have a picture that I want to show, see if I can get this to advance to that. Oops. So here's the picture. I hope you can see this. This picture is almost all non-Muslims. It's just, it was our very first event, and everyone wanted to pray with our Muslim friends and neighbors. So it's just powerful. And for me, this is especially meaningful because I had an experience the very first, well, not the very first time, but I had started visiting the mosque just by myself. And I just wanted to be there and interact and see what was going on in there. And so I started going in and learned how to line up with everybody and say the prayers. And one particular time, we were saying our prayers, and we were in this position that you see right here. And we stayed there. We lingered there. The person leading the prayers, led everyone just to stay there for several minutes. And I just remember hearing on both sides of me, I remember hearing people praying, whispering their prayers to God. And it was just a moment of eye-opening awareness for me that how could I have ever thought that, I would pray God and he would hear me, but if these are right next to me are praying to God and he doesn't hear them, it just became so crystal clear to me how ridiculous that concept was. And it was a very profound change. So for this reason, I really love doing this, to give people the opportunity to say the prayers. And I have the Muslim leaders translate the prayers so people know what's being said. And I find it really fun and powerful. So that's phase one of our awareness process. Phase two is then following up with a mosque visit. I just basically take signups, all the folks who are attending phase one, and see who wants to follow it up with a mosque visit, coordinate with the leadership of the mosque, and we coordinate a time to go. And I find the best time is, of course, during the Jummah gathering, and it gives Muslim visitors an opportunity to observe what actually happens within the walls of the mosque. Again, based on over-dramatized cinematic productions, non-Muslims typically have, they have no idea, wild imaginations. But honestly, for myself, when I started visiting the mosque, I felt like the same exact feeling as I had when I would go to church. Just happy families coming together in community around their worship and prayers. Anyway, so I want to give people the opportunity to observe that. And so hearing the khutbah and observing the warm, friendly family atmosphere will go a long way. And I find that Ramadan, of course, is a really good time for doing this, even though it puts a little extra pressure, of course, on the mosque leadership and the imam in terms of having a bunch of visitors show up when he's got his very busy and active Ramadan schedule going on. But it's a really good opportunity to bring visitors because, of course, I don't have to tell the audience that the heightened spiritual awareness of that season, it's such a good time. People a really clear picture of what Islam and Muslims are about. And sometimes I've had this happen where the local imam will say, no, don't bring anybody. I'm too busy. There's too much going on, and we're already too crowded. And of course, I understand this. I've done work as a pastor before, and it keeps you busy, and you don't need the extra workload. But I just want to emphasize, I think this it's a tough ask, but I think it's an important ask that if we're really interested in the issue of Islamophobia, that we not only make this a priority, that we we welcome and encourage these visits and plan for them and develop specialized, culturally appropriate accommodations for non-Muslim visitors, and do everything possible to ensure they have a comfortable and pleasant visit. The people that come to these visits, they go away profoundly changed, and they're excited and they're so happy. And I have a bunch of them in the back of my car when we're driving home, and they're just jabbering and talking. They're so excited about what a wonderful experience it was. So it's just a really good thing to do. So once we get past our step one, awareness, we move on to step two, people-to-people events. Let's see if I can back to there. So there's a whole series of people-to-people events, but basically it starts friendship dinners. Now, this is not rocket science. Friendship dinners, peace feasts, different. Everybody does these. Just bring people together from Muslims and non-Muslims, same amount of people usually about, come together, share a halal meal, and just give people to get to know each other and start to have friendly conversations. Really fun thing to do. I really enjoy these. Then we go to a deeper level. Each level in our process produces a deeper level of interaction and conversation. The second level, small group discussions, we basically bring smaller groups together, 10 to 15, equal number of Muslims and non-Muslims, and we curate these conversations to allow people to hear each other's stories, get to know each other, and then especially start to address these misunderstandings that people have, and ask their questions, and get a little bit deeper in terms of having this conversation. So we find these to be very powerful. And I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of a new idea that we're working on. We're going to continue these small group discussions. We're going to start a new version of it that is more than just Muslim and non-Muslim. It's going to be 100% diverse. We're handpicking members from all the points of the star, all the facets of diversity, whether it be skin color, whether it be nationality, whether it be ethnicity, whether it be sexuality, whatever it might, as many different people that we can bring together. We're going to come together, specifically not because we're all the same, but we're going to come together because we're going to demonstrate that we as humans can connect only on the basis of our common humanity, and that we don't need orthodoxy, religion, political beliefs, racial, nationality, whatever, all those things. We don't need those things, age, ability, whatever it might be. We don't need all those things in common to come together. All we need is our common humanity, and we can have meaningful connection. So we're just spinning up a new group that's going to be starting in mid-September. So be watching our website. We're going to be putting up videos and results of how that's going. We have a couple other steps we skip through. We do citizen advocate training, and then we also do diplomacy, and then we the final step of our process is cultural awareness travel. We haven't done any of these yet. We've been it up. Of course, COVID has put everything on a screech here, but the idea is that, you know, it's one thing for, I think, you know, the typical American non-Muslim, it's one thing to host strangers places, but it's something else entirely to be that stranger in that faraway place. It can be life-changing and mind-expanding. So we're working on organizing journeys to Muslim lands. You know, gosh, even 10 years before 2016, 25% of Americans held passports, and now I think 42% or so have passports, but 73% of the travel is within North America or Europe. So really roughly 90% of all Americans have never set foot in Indonesia or North Africa or in the subcontinent or the Middle East or in Turkey or Iran, or you name it. So we want to offer travel opportunities to give people this mind-blowing experience of experiencing the culture, like I was lucky enough to do when I was in Qatar. So now our awareness and people-to-people event series is readily scalable. We're developing a detailed startup kit that includes hands-on instructions for every phase of the process that we can then hand off with a little bit of training to volunteers in cities and towns, and hoping to see this replicated all over the United States. That's our dream, bringing Muslims and non-Muslims together. So obviously, again, going on. So our event series is working on a transition, starting up some online events. They'll be very, very similar. They're going to be held online, and it's not nearly as fun, of course, as these person-to-person interactions in real life. But we're gonna keep moving. So now, moving on to the next phase of evaluation and observation. You know, our Fear to Friendship process is so simple. Sorry, how am I doing on time? 2 minutes to go?
Yes, we can wrap this up in 5 minutes if you like.
Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about these observations. By far, the biggest obstacle that I face, that we face in this process, is lack of incentive on the part of individual faith communities to reach out to one another. Whenever I speak, often when I speak to a church or mosque leader about doing an event, I typically encounter a full schedule of events focusing completely either internally or on outreach to increase their membership. So both professional and volunteer staff of these religious institutions are overworked supporting their internal event schedule. A typical structure has a pastor, priest, rabbi, imam reporting to a board of directors and being held accountable for success of the organization per the organization's stated missions. And I can guarantee you that none of these organizations have as an objective developing sustained good relations with other faith communities. So there's no structural to do this. It's only basically a lot of good people who really understand it's important, but it's not structurally built into our institutions. That's the biggest obstacle that I find. So I submit that in order to have any hope of reversing the frightful momentum of anti-Muslim sentiment, which spills over into anti-Semitism and other horrible things, religious institutions on all levels must make part of their core mission, and they must actively address it with measurable goals and realistic objectives so that imams, pastors, rabbis, priests can be incentivized and freed up to do this work. That's the number one thing. And the one thing that is the most important conclusion that I hope to leave you with. The next obstacle is highlights the importance of mediating organizations such as Salam. There's a small group of us who hear the call to be peacemakers, and rather than focus on an individual community, we inhabit the spaces in between these faith communities. So we really need support of the faith communities to do our work, because the individual faith communities, as I said, structurally don't have that incentive. So we have our social media, and I'm gonna quickly go to another slide here. Ways you can help us, very simple. Social media, everyone loves social media. If you can follow us on social media, you can see our tags right there. And more than follow, but share the post, interact with the post, talk with us, and help us spread this word. And really easy way that people can help us with 5 minutes a day. We also are looking for volunteers to help us on every level of this kind of work, whether it's helping with social media or organization or event planning or website development, all those things. And then finally, of course, we can't do this work without financial support. Again, we don't have a congregation behind us or anything like that. We're just a small group of people. So take a look at our website, and if you like what you're hearing and what we see, please go to our website. There's a gazillion little orange buttons that say donate now, and you can just click on one of those and help us out. And finally, you can help us by connecting us with groups that would be willing to host events. And just again, email me, and be glad to set up an event around any organization that's interested. So I have a whole list of other lessons learned, but I've used up all my time, so I'll turn it over now to Attila.
Thank you, Steve, for this wonderful work of yours, and looking forward to meeting you in person when COVID,
yes,
we're over with this COVID thing, hopefully in San Diego. Now, you mentioned about building trust, and the first question comes how do you do that in the time of negativity, in an era where people are suspicious of each other? Is there an anecdotal reference that you'd like to share with us?
Well, really, it comes down to relationships, and I just talk to people. Sometimes, it takes time. Trust is not something that is given, instantly. And a lot of times, it doesn't come instantly. Sometimes I have to, invest the time that it takes to maintain this relationship. And we maybe do some simple things. And, after time, they get to know me, they get to know our organization, and, eventually they trust us. So there's no shortcuts to trust. It's just, building relationships and then honoring that friendship and honoring that trust.
Well, thank you for that. The second question comes you said you were a missionary, and my question is, are you still on a mission? And is this book part of it?
Well, yeah, I guess I would say, I think of myself a lot differently than I did then. I don't. I honestly, at that point in my life, felt that was my that was my direction from God to go and convert people. But I've come so far from that, and so my mission is to bring people together, and it is a mission in a sense, but it's not really nearly as strong. It just feels like the right thing to do for me right now, given the history that I've lived and the people that I've met, and it just pains me to see this divide between peoples that's based only on misinformation. It just pains me. So I really just can't help myself from trying to do something about that, because I have so many friends who are Muslims, and they're targeted and they're misrepresented, and there's just so many things I experience. It just, I feel like I owe a debt to the Kazakh people in that they were so good to me, so kind to me and my family, and I guess I just feel like I'm repaying that debt. So that's more of my mission, is just repaying the debt of the people to me.
Wonderful, wonderful. This question comes from somebody who read your book, I suppose, and it asks, one of the central part of your book is the parts you explain the radicalism in Islam and radical Islam in West. How do you define radicals? Can you please elaborate here for us?
Well, sure. Yeah. Basically, the most important point. Now, keep in mind who my audience is. My audience is non-Muslim Americans who don't know anything about Islam. What they do know about Islam is wrong, usually. So I address it from their perspective, and so it's important that I don't basically explain it away and say it doesn't exist. Of course it exists, and so I acknowledge that this radicalism does exist. But the point that I make over and over and over again in my book is that radicalism has nothing to do with the teachings of Islam. It has nothing to do with what's written in the Quran. It has nothing to do with the teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It's 100% rooted in political and military injustices, and that's where it is. And I don't just say that in generalities. I bring out 3 key incidents where there was intervention that led to radicalism. And of course, one was Iran in 1953, when the very first democratic government that ever existed in Iran, which has been thousands of years of empire and emperors and so on. So and the United States Operation Ajax took down that democratic government. So everyone thinks all this stuff with Iran is been going on forever, and that it's based on the revolution, but it doesn't. You don't have to go back very far to understand that wasn't the cause of it. So I bring out that incident, and then of course the invasion of Afghanistan, which of course was really, it was the United States that armed the radicals, including Osama bin Laden. So talk about that one, and then of course the invasion of Iraq. And you don't have to go very far to see these very simple things that have taken place that are the real cause of radicalism. And so I really make it clear that that's the cause of radicalism, and it's not the teachings of Islam.
Well, thank you for that. The last question goes, have you faced any negative reactions or challenges from Muslims or non-Muslims about your activities, during your activities with Salam?
That's a great question. Never from Muslims. The only thing that happened was one time someone got angry with me that I hadn't provided security. which was a first, and it's something that I really have to think about. But we were invited to one event in Ramona, California, which is a red district, and we were invited by a progressive political activist group to come and just share. You know, the Muslim speakers would share about their faith, and it was open to the public. And so it was in a library. It was a packed house, and on the positive side, everyone sat through the talks. We had wonderful, humble, soft-spoken, but articulate speakers who talked about their faith, who talked about, you know, women in Islam and the whole thing. And they all sat through the whole thing. But then the Q&A session came up, and whoa, it was frightening. These people, and the interesting thing about it is that they were, you know, just people that you would think of as decent, you know, nice church-going, older, retired kind of people, but their eyes just lit up with this rage, and they were jumping up and tag teaming and asking ridiculous questions. And so it come to find out, there had been like 5 events in this little town. There are no Muslims live in this town, but there had been 5 anti-Muslim events for 100% political reasons, to keep that district red. And they had been prepped, and they came with all kinds of my Muslim speakers. I mean, these are like they're trained speakers. I mean, they know their stuff, and the questions we're asking, they were just we're all just looking at each other like, what are they even talking about? Where are they getting this stuff? So it was I was really upset because my speakers, I felt, were abused. They were not treated kindly, and they're just nice, good, like I said, soft-spoken, humble people, and it really bothered me. So it was definitely a learning experience. The moderator of the talk did not do a good job in terms of controlling the audience and that sort of thing. And so it was definitely a lesson learned in terms of, if we get into that kind of situation, we need to really carefully control that Q&A session.
Well, thank you, Steve, for your great work, especially outside the Interfaith Network and in areas, in districts where this kind of stuff, positive stuff, is not being discussed. Thank you for your courage, and really the great book. Looking forward to having that book as well. For our audience, you can find our author's book, Steve Slocum, Why They Hate Us, on the Amazon. The link is in our YouTube channel as well. Please feel free to take a look and purchase and donate generously to Salam. Thank you, Steve, for being part of this book discussion and talk. Looking forward to meeting you in person after this COVID era.
Oh, likewise. Thank you very much.
Thank you.